What is up, my friend? Hey, it is another edition of the Studio Sherpas podcast. I am Ryan Cockerell. I am your host, and I am here to help you grow your video business. If you don't have a video business, then maybe it's my mom listening. Hi, Mom. Thank you for tuning in again, and you really don't need to keep doing this, but I love you and appreciate you anyway. Hey, this episode, I've got business leader, keynote speaker, and former Disney executive Dan Cockerell, who brings some leadership heat today. If you are wanting to up your game as a professional without compromising your personality, your creativity, your craft, then you are going to love this episode. In today's show, we cover how to create amazing experiences for your video clients beyond just delivering awesome videos. We'll give you some very actionable things to do before you start filming and after you deliver a project that are guaranteed to make you a hero for your clients. And seriously, who doesn't want to be a hero? And then we share the one question that you should be asking all of your clients, all that and more. With that, let's jump into this episode with Dan Cockerell. What's up, friends? Hey, it's Ryan, and this is another edition of the Studio Sherpas podcast. And with me today is Dan Cockerell. Actually, I forgot to mention this, Dan. I have had your dad on the show. Is that weird? Is that cool? Is that not cool?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's great. You're going to hear very similar, I think, stories. And I learned a ton from him over the years. So that'll be fun.
I bet. So Dan's first experience working for Disney was as a participant in the Walt Disney World College program in Orlando in the summer of 1989. When he worked as a front desk host at the Contemporary Resorts. So since then, he's been a keynote speaker for the Disney Institute for 18 years. And he also provides customized, authentic presentations focusing on leadership and management practices, drawing upon his extensive Disney career and with relevant examples and inspiring storytelling. Dan, super happy to have you, man.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So bring us up to speed. Before the show, we're talking, you and your wife are kind of in transition. What does that look like, and how are you spending your time these days, and what are you excited about?
Yeah, well, I left Disney May 2018, and had thought about that decision for about a year. We'd been discussing it. My wife brought up about what we're doing next as our kids are getting older, and when she first said it, I said, well, I'm obviously going to spend the rest of my life at Walt Disney World and, retire and then die. That's the plan. That's what we all do. And so I thought about it for a year, and we finally made the decision to make a big change. And so I gave my notice, gave a couple months notice so we could get the new guy up to speed in my job, and then headed out. And, my dad has been an incredible mentor. He worked for Disney for a long time, and he went out and figured out how to be an entrepreneur after two big careers with Marriott and Disney. And so he gave me a lot of confidence. It's funny. I mean, running Magic Kingdom, huge theme park, thinking about leaving and going doing your own thing is terrifying. And I know a lot of people say, well, running a theme park that big is terrifying. I'm like, no, that's not terrifying. Because you get paid every Thursday. You have every tool and resource you ever dreamed of at your fingertips. So the past 18 months has been a huge, it's like getting out of college, and we have a little bit more wisdom and you got a little more money in your pocket, but you're starting all over again. And it has been terrifying. It's been exhilarating. It's been exciting. There's nights where you're just working, but the work is like on your own terms. And that is, I always wondered what it was like to be an entrepreneur. And I found out it's a heck of a lot of work. It's a lot of freedom, and it's a heck of a lot of work.
Yeah.
But we've been traveling a ton. I started a podcast. I'm on about my 65th episode now.
Yeah, man. Congrats.
Called, thank you. Come Rain or Shine. I do that with Jody Mayberry. He's my co-host.
Jody, yes.
And he's got such the radio voice. It's just so smooth. But I realized I did my first solo podcast last week. We were in France, and Jody and I couldn't sync up our time zones with Seattle and France. So I did it solo. A typical podcast I do is like half an hour to 35, 40 minutes. This one was like 15 minutes because when I don't have someone to talk to, it's so much harder. So we're doing that. And I just finished writing my book. We have to have the final draft in the next 4 days. And that'll be coming. I'll have copies in March, and it'll hit bookstores August 11th. It's called How is the Weather in Your Kingdom? And it's all about culture and about building the right culture for your organization And your organization can be your company, it can be your family, it can be your wherever you volunteer. Any environment you're in is you have a culture. I talk a lot about what I learned at Disney through that and how important it is. And then keynote speeches and leadership workshops. Val and I just did our first leadership workshop up in Toronto together. And as I tell people, we have learned to be successfully married for 27 years. And it's taken a year and a half to figure out how to work together. That's a whole nother deal. And we're starting to hit our stride now without killing each other or getting divorced. So that's been good. But that's been a lot of fun also, is kind of working together. And we have different approaches. And someone said, just make sure you know what your roles are. If you have role clarity, it gets a lot easier. So
what's I guess that was my follow-up to that is how have you figured that out to be able to, like, is there a secret outside of that where you guys are like, hey, this actually is working, here's what we did to get it to where it can work?
Yeah. Well, I think probably from a relationship standpoint is, I like to say that I love feedback and I'm open-minded and I always try to get better. And I do believe all that.
Yeah.
But I really don't like critical feedback. And so I love to hear how great things are. But when I hear things aren't as good, I tend to get a little defensive in the moment, and I have to learn to unwind that. And when it's your spouse, it's even harder. And so working through that. But she's extremely structured. And so when we're doing our workshops, she brings the structure to it and the kind of puts it all together. And then I'm much better at I'm not going to call it spitballing, but the fireside chat. Let's have a discussion. Let's talk about it, the Q&A portion of it. And I found in these workshops, it's much more fun to hear from two different people than one person for 8 hours. And it's more dynamic. People learn better when they hear different styles. I think having a man and a woman facilitating, there's different approaches we take and there's different ways we talk. And so I think it's been all positive, and we get to travel together. That's been the biggest thing. We get to do all this kind of stuff together, which is awesome.
That's great. Yeah. You're talking about your podcast. Solo podcasts are the toughest for me. I was writing some notes yesterday and making some goals. I probably have done, I don't know, maybe out of the 150 something episodes that we've done, I think I've done 8 or 9 solo. And I think next year I'm going to make it a habit at least once a month, maybe twice, to do solo episodes. Cause it's like I was realizing yesterday, I'm like, this is really hard. I want to, because I think I can add value just if I love my guests, like, anyway, a goal.
But it makes you think differently, and it makes you prepare more, and it makes you really have to map out what you're going to do, because there's no silent pause while the other person's reacting to you get your thoughts together. It's just you driving that thing.
Yeah.
And I know how I think we talked about how we operate. We don't have scripts. You just get on and maybe you have a couple bullet points or you thought through a couple things. But when it's like that, it's like, all right, let's just keep going. So
the
last episode, I even told Val, I said, can I interview your mom, my mother-in-law? She's like, well, she doesn't speak English. She only speaks French. Who's going to translate? And I'm like, and she goes, besides, we're going out to my sister. So no, you have to do it on your own. So I was at the point, I'm like, I want my mother-in-law to talk about living in France. So it didn't work out. So we'll see how that goes. And, like I said, maybe I may take that challenge, maybe once every few months, try a solo.
That's good.
Yeah.
What was, long career at Disney. I mean, I'm a huge fan. Pretty much everybody is. I fell in love as I started my business, learning more about the business of Disney and just, customer service and all that stuff, has had a big impression on me. And so I've loved going. And really, I love going for multiple different reasons. But one of the things I love doing is just kind of standing back and like watching how people work and watching how they interact with their what are they called? Not guests. Guests?
With our guests.
Yeah.
Our cast members put on a show for the guests.
That's right.
That's right.
It is amazing. It really is. And we've received some really cool experiences because, one kid we had was crying one time. And so we had some cast members come over and usher us to, meet the princesses or something like that. But things that, for these kids, like they'll never forget it. Right. And just moments where we just feel like, wow, we were really taken care of. And that in my mind, that's how you build raving fans. That's how you go from just providing a good service or a good experience for people to unforgettable, right?
Yeah.
incredibly
Yeah,
meaningful. So when you see the pictures or the photos, to remember, like that's where it's just like, it's the happiest place on earth, right? Like
that's right.
miracles happen in this place. What was one of your favorite moments that you like to talk about as you were there, whether it was with a guest or, coworkers or whatever? What was one of your favorite experiences that you'd had?
Yeah, it's hard to pin down one because when you're in a place like that,
Mm,
the volume of people you meet
yeah.
and it's almost like you have to be careful not to become sort of just kind of blasé about it because I could hang out on Main Street, the Magic Kingdom, and if I waited there, an hour or two just hanging out, I'd see an engagement. It's like, oh, an
Mhm.
engagement. And usually if you see that, it's like a big deal. Wow, I saw engagement today at Magic Kingdom. We're like, yeah, I saw a
Yeah.
couple today. So it's I think there's that piece is you don't want to forget about where you are, but you also want to remember you're there to deliver. We've made this promise to people. They're spending a lot of money. A lot of people, they're only going to come once or they're not going to come back for a very long time. And there's this responsibility we put on ourselves to make sure we're delivering this experience to them. And when I speak to groups, I always start out with, I know, because I've spoken with construction companies, concrete companies, healthcare companies, pharmaceutical companies, accounting firms. And I always started out as, I know you all are asking, what's the Disney guy doing here? Because I don't have a theme park and I don't have Mickey Mouse, and I don't have roller coasters, and I don't have waffles, the shape of his Mickey Mouse's head and all the stuff and I don't have billions of dollars, to spend. And what I tell everyone, look, everything I'm going to share today is it has nothing to do with resources. It's all about how the experience you want to create for your customers, whoever your customers are. And it really is a mindset. It's how high do you want to set your expectations and how accountable are you going to hold your people to those expectations? And then are you willing to make sure you make them part of that journey with you? And it starts, and I found at Disney, people, they've asked before, how do you hire so many people who are so nice and
Yeah.
so happy and always smiling? And, you always joke, we have the big, it's all the Kool-Aid you can drink in the backstage area. We drink a whole bunch every day. And what do you put in the water? But I tell them, I said, we kind of stack the deck. We hire people who love to create great experiences for people. And so we're not trying to hire anybody and then change them and get them passionate about
Yeah.
service.
Yeah.
We go out of our way to really hire people who are passionate about service and have great attitudes and are willing to overcome barriers and obstacles to get the job done. And then we put them in that environment and then we train them, we give them the skills and we do all that. But if you hire the right kind of people and it's hard because people, I think you said it, the difference between great or good and extraordinary is the difference between a business being viable or not. The way we measure things at Disney, we have a 5-point scale on everything we measure, and it's poor, just okay, good, very good, and excellent. But we basically take the bottom 4, very good and down, and we put it in one bucket, and we take excellent and we put that in the other bucket. And so what we consider is there's excellent and there's not excellent.
Mhm.
Very good is the same as poor,
Yeah.
because the difference between, if you have a very good experience, you may buy my product again. You may come visit again. If you have an excellent experience, you most likely will buy my product again, or you most likely will experience my product again. And 1 percentage point of intent to recommend or intent to return at Walt Disney World, I think finance they estimated like $300 million. 1 percentage point of people going from very good to excellent in their overall experience.
Wow.
And we're probably we're probably in the mid 60s at Walt Disney World. So there's a whole bunch of room for improvement.
Yeah.
And when you set the bar that high, everyone wants to work towards that. And you can get there. And I see that kind of excellence in my everyday life now. I don't see it all the time, but there's a company that I order my business cards from, and I send the email. They respond within like an hour and a half with the mock-up from a graphic designer. I send back my edits. They send back the edit like an hour and a half later, and they call me to see if it's okay. I make the order, and they're sent to me like a week later. So every time I look for business cards, and they're expensive. I mean, it's
Mhm.
not cheap, but every time I go to business card, I haven't even thought about looking anywhere else now because they're so responsive.
Yeah.
And if they raise their price by 20%, I wouldn't blink. I'm like, look, it's easy. You're taking care of me. You have a sense of urgency about the product. I love the product. It's high quality, and I'll pay much more for that than I would of some place that I kind of have to work at it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I mean, it makes you think of some of my favorite brands, Zappos. Their customer service is like off the charts. I wear contacts, so I use 1-800 contacts. The least the first time I ordered from them, I never expected anything other than like an exchange of like, here's my eye information. This is how many I need. Oh my gosh, these are the nicest people. So we've used them for years, right? I'd never considered. The only time I consider an alternative is when we're at the eye, getting our eye exam, and the doctor's trying to sell us on their stuff. And typically 1-800 contacts will meet or beat their price. And I'm like, those people are just nicer. Like I would rather work with them.
Right. And I think what you assume is the contacts are going to all be the same. You can tell me about
Right.
this one is this much more, you can use it this much longer and it has this much moisture in it and your vision will be improved by this much. But then the day you're like, they're all kind of the same. It's like when you go to the hospital. Every hospital I go to, I don't look up like which emergency room should I go to, which has the highest survival rate. You go to the closest one because you don't really think about that. So when you're dealing with these commodities, you have to compete on service because you can't, it's so technical, and people will assume it's going to be in and around. Zappos, I can buy the shoes they sell on eBay, on Amazon, on Zappos. I can go to the mall and probably get them in and around the same price point.
Yeah.
But when it's easy, it's intuitive how to deal with places, and they make it easy for you. It's just, like I said, it seems like your focus on price goes
Yeah.
down dramatically, and you just like the convenience of it or just being treated well.
I have a business idea. I'm going to bounce this off you.
Yeah.
I like to, because I care so much about culture and about good customer service. And we're here with Tell Studios and Studio Sherpas, the businesses that I run, always trying to think through how can we be better at this? Because we definitely have room to grow. So my business idea, because we haven't perfected anything here, that doesn't mean that this isn't a good business idea. My idea is that, like Yelp or like these places where you can review and understand, is this a good restaurant? Do they have good food? And people will write about customer service and whatnot in those reviews. But I think that maybe a good idea would be people hire somebody like me. This is not a job that I want, but I would go to, 10 different restaurants in a city and just find the restaurants where the people are the nicest and the customer service is the best, regardless of the food. Like, the food's kind of like, it's probably good. It's good enough or whatever. I would restaurant, stores, banks, like all of the places where I go and spend time. I don't want to. There are so many places where the people are just bleh. Like they hate their job, they don't like their life, they're just kind of like, and it's like, oh man, like, I mean, I want to care for those people, but if I'm going to spend time and money in places, so anyway, my idea is that they create an app, or somebody creates an app, and you can rate places just on customer service. Terrible idea, good idea. Is it already an app?
Well, I think it's interesting if you honed in only on that, right? If you just want to get a great experience, here are the places to go. Now, secondarily, are these products you need? I think it's a great idea because once again, you the expectation just goes up. You're spending your hard-earned money, and you just want, and a lot of times, once again, it doesn't have to be over the top. Just give me a certain level of attention. And I start to notice that now, these little differences. We were at the mall this morning. There was apparently Black Friday started like last week.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
so we went to the mall with my wife and daughter, and they stopped by Starbucks. And this guy at the register, he took the orders and he asked if there's anything else. And I said, I want to use my rewards on my card. Can I get you anything else? Would you like some food? And this kid, I still remember him from today. He was the one that made this impact on me. And he didn't do anything, like he didn't give us anything free. There was nothing. He didn't give us a sample. There was just something about the spark he had, this energy he had. He just seemed like he was enjoying his day and he was enjoying working there. And it just made me feel better about it. Because to your point, when you're interacting with people who don't enjoy their job, it kind of takes you down too. You're like, man, I feel worse than you do now.
Yeah,
man, you should get out of here. So it is. A lot of this is attitude. And that, the reason I said I really can't pinpoint one moment. I mean, I could sit down and tell stories all day long, but it's because I think it's the attitude that when you're in a place like Disney where you get so many people coming together that are so focused on creating this incredible experience, and the expectations are really high. You're working off of 100 years of tradition and heritage, and people are really proud to work there. In fact, when we do our employee survey every couple of years, the number one biggest strength for the Walt Disney Company is pride in working there. That's the thing that we get the highest score on. When it comes to recognition, we tank every time. We don't thank people enough, like every organization. We don't talk to people enough. We need to make decisions at the right level. I mean, we suffer from all the bureaucracy that a lot of big companies do. But the one thing's that consistent is people are proud to work for Disney. And so I really honed in on that when I would go and go to Cosmic Rays and talk to cast members and say, look, I just want to remind you, no one else is running a restaurant this big in the world right now except you. And you're part of this team that's running the biggest restaurant in the world. No one does this. And I'd remind people at Magic Kingdom, no one is opening a park this big, 365 days a year, doing this volume at this level of quality that we are, and you get to be part of that. And people like to hear that because they forget sometimes. You just forget about your environment. We're creatures of habit, and whatever is normal becomes normal.
Right.
And so it's like when my wife and I bought our first house, we're like, we never need a bigger house. This house is perfect. It's got a pool in the back, and there's no way we could ever want something. And like 2 years later, we're like, I wish the patio was a little bigger. And the pool is just a little small. And we had parties. It's like, why can't you just be happy with what you have? Because humans keep developing. It's hard to appreciate what you have in the environment you're in. And I'm a big fan of, you create your own attitude, you create the environment for yourself. And I see so many people that are, their life is impacted by others all the time.
Yeah.
And you can't let that happen because the environment's going to change, and you're going to be in really bad situations, and you're going to deal with people with bad attitudes.
Yeah.
And you control everything. You can control everything you react to is the way you decide. And I think people forget that, and they're not in charge of themselves anymore. And we'd like to hire a lot of people who say, you know what, I don't care what happens. We are going to have a great time at work. We're going to work hard, and we're going to, accomplish the mission. And when you can get people like that, like I said, the sky's the limit in what you can get done.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I will be right back with my interview with Dan Cockerell right after this. I've been running my own video production company called Tell Studios and have for the last 15 years. I'm like ancient in this world. I went from charging clients a couple $100, actually probably less than that, for a video, to being able to consistently book 5- and 6-figure video jobs and working all alone in the bedroom of our first house, to having multiple employees in almost a 6,000 square foot studio space. And I'm here to tell you that you can also win in this business. Maybe your goal isn't to hire employees or to have your own studio, but maybe you want to not have to work so hard at getting people to hire you, or figure out on your own how you can charge more money, or how you can work on projects that inspire you. You can do this, but you need a plan. You need a process. You need some steps on how to do this, repeatable steps, and you need a community where there's some accountability. And that's what Studio Sherpas is all about. We are a community of guides helping our clients understand how we can help them, and figuring out sooner rather than later if we're going to be a good fit to work together. All while charging more than we ever thought that we could, because we finally started believing in our value, and we finally started charging what we're worth. If you're interested in becoming a part of this community, you can find out more about the Video Business Academy at studiosherpas.com/academy. And if you're serious about growing in a real and honest and actionable way, without being sleazy, but being totally authentic to who you are as a person, or using trickery or sorcery or anything like that, you really should consider the Video Business Academy. Again, the URL is studiosherpas.com/academy. And now back to our show. I think, so the people listen to the show is, small studios, solopreneurs, doing video stuff for businesses and whatnot. So there's a lot of similarities, right? If you looked at all of the people, all of their work, and some people are just incredibly beautiful, and then maybe a really small segment, it's pretty bad. But the majority of people, it looks good, right? So we have fewer and fewer things to be measured on for potential clients to hire us on. And what ends up happening, especially early on, this was my career. It's like you find out what people charge for video, and then you just undercut it, right? And that's how you start. And then as you gain in confidence and you get more experiences, and it's like, okay, I'll charge more and more and more and more. Hopefully that's the trajectory.
Sure.
So as you're just talking about, how you treat people, how you treat employees, how you treat customers, I think one thing that's important to do is to be able to self-assess, right? So like you're kind of saying like anything below 5 is not excellent, right? And we're striving for excellent. We want to be excellent. How does a freelancer, does a really small studio, is that person too small to have some kind of a self-assessment to say like, what, because there's 100 hats, there's 100 jobs, 100 things that person is responsible for. Can someone do a self-assessment, and or what would you recommend to get an idea of like, where do I fall on delivering a great experience, and are there things that I can do to improve?
Sure. No, it's a great question. And I think one of the things why, in my opinion, the experiences I had working for Disney, why it has become such an icon of service is it's not the complexity that we've been able to figure out. It's creating the simplicity to run it and not making them as least complex as possible. And so there are not, it's a pretty simple formula. So I've adopted that. And every time I lose my way now as a consultant and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing, I go back to what we do at Disney. And the whole number one thing is, when you talk about excellence, what does excellence mean? Who defines what excellence is?
Yeah.
Your customer does. And your customer does. And so when I talk about excellence at Disney, we have to go talk to our guests, and we have to find out, okay, A, why do you come here? Why do you come back? And what's the most important thing to you that we do that is the reason you come here? What's the second most important thing? What's the third most important thing? And we run that list, and it goes, there's a few hundred things that we come up with. And then once we have that list, we focus on like the top 10 or 15. And because there's at Disney, we call them key drivers, right? Certain things in your business are weighted more than other things when you're delivering experience to people. Like if I was a videographer, the quality of the camera I'm using for a customer, that may be, that's number 12 on my list, because that's kind of an expectation I have. I expect it's going to be high quality. I don't know what high quality looks like, but that's kind of what I expect. So when we talk to guests and that we expected to hear from them, I want you to, I want you to have great fireworks, or I want it to be clean. I want it to be safe. They didn't tell us any of that because they just expected that. So I think as a videographer for the businesses or any business you're in, what are the things that are driving people to you that they're going to rate you excellent on, and then figure those out, and figure out the things that are just expected and realize you're not going to compete on those. So every time I give a keynote speech, I talk to the CEO or the top executive, whoever hired me, and I say, okay, at the end of this speech, what do you want your employees to have heard from me that's going to support your strategy and your message? Because they don't bring me in just to have some totally different message than the CEO. I need to support what they're doing.
Right.
So I do my homework. I insist I talk to them a couple times in advance and just have dialogues and conversations. What are you working on? What ideas are you trying to sell to your team? What are you trying to influence? What do your goals look like? Tell me some stories about things you've done in the company. And then if I can get up there a day early, I spend time with the employees and talk to them and get some quotes and things they're talking about. So by the time I do my keynote speech, I want that CEO to come up and say, guys, did you hear Dan? That's exactly what I've been talking about, because I want it to be, because that's why they brought me in, is to help influence and drive them in the direction they're already trying to go. So I would just say the number one thing you should do is you talk to your customer when they call you and say, okay, tell me what the most important thing here is about this event you're doing. And they may say, well, I just want to make sure we capture all the special moments that are going to be done. Okay, what would you consider the special moments? Well, there's going to be 5 things I want to make sure we catch on video. The first dance, the best man speech, whatever those things are. And then I want the candids. I want the candid moments that only you can help us put together. Great, that's good to know that. Someone else may say, I want to make sure I'm capturing at least 2 minutes with these 40 people there because I want my grandkids to have this, and I want them to hear from their great grandparents or grandparents. So you got to figure out, what do they define excellent is going to be? And if they're not sure, you can tell the story and say, well, here's what I think you might want. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. And so at the end, that's what excellence is going to be. They're the only ones who can judge whether you did an excellent job or not. So you can't come in with a formula and tell them what excellence is, because they're going to have different expectations.
Yeah.
And so that's what we've done at Disney over time. The number one key driver of overall experience at Walt Disney World is rides and entertainment. Seeing as many rides and entertaining experiences as they can. So we spend a whole bunch of time on efficiency to make sure we can get as many people through our attractions as possible. We make sure we're always developing new experiences, how to ramp up during the holidays. That's a big piece of what we're doing. It's about infrastructure. Number two is the experience they have with our cast members. So that's the whole, are you paying attention to me? Are you treating me like an individual? Are you making me feel special? Are you respecting me as a guest? Are you knowledgeable about your job? You know, those are things our guests have told us are the differentiators, and you work your way down. So we score like, I think 17% in variety in our QSR locations. Excellent, which is really low. But one day we were brainstorming, how do we fix that? How do we fix? And finally, one of the old timers that worked for Disney for a long time said, you don't fix it. If you're in Cosmic Rays and you want pizza, that place isn't big enough to sell pizza and burgers. You're putting millions of people through every year. Just they're going to have to walk over to Fantasyland and get their pizza. And you know what? If you get 100% excellent in variety, it's like number 50th on your key drivers list. It's not even going to move the overall excellence score. People may rate you low on it, but they really don't care about it. So this is about prioritizing your resources. You can't focus on everything. So you got to figure on the value added activities that your customer wants, and take the top 4 or 5 and nail those. And if you do that, then they're going to recommend you. They're going to talk to others about your business. They're going to come back for more and for their kids. And that's how you grow your business over time. It's about intent to recommend and intent to return.
I love that. That's really good. When I learned that setting clear expectations, understanding, defining, like, what do you mean when you say, important shots or the important moments,
right.
Instead of just writing down that note, okay, yeah, I'll get all the important shots,
right.
important moments, but going that next step, which is like
going down in the hole, and just keep asking questions.
So yeah, that's one of my new things. I learned it from my buddy George Wells. Shout out George. Is what else? Like what else? So asking a person, okay, what are the special moments to you? Oh, it's for this wedding, it's the kiss, it's walking down the aisle. It's like, okay, what else? Well, it's, and they keep going. What else? Until there's like, yeah, I think that's it. Great. Now you've got an amazing list that you create, like just what you're saying, Dan. It's like, this is priority. I have an idea of, like, when I create a film, like, these are the things that I think are most important. So is there a way to marry those, pun intended, is there a way to marry their ideas of what excellence is with yours? Probably, because they're coming to you because they've seen something, they felt something from your work, so something resonates with them. And that's where, you don't want a client necessarily driving the creative or the whole video. It's like, okay, well, maybe you don't do the thing that they would say this is what we want captured. Maybe you don't stay after and, film all the dancing or whatever, like, all night. Maybe that's just not your gig. And I remember for us as a company, like, we would tell people, like, yeah, we can do that. But it's just not what we do. And that's a great expectation to set, so that they're not upset later when they're like, hey, where's all this other stuff? And it's like, oh, well, I mean, you've never seen any of that in our work before. Why would you think that? Well, if we never told them that we weren't going to do this, and they never told us that this was something that meant so much to them, then we can't there's no way we can make them happy. Right?
Exactly. Clarity is so important. And I love that idea. You just keep digging, keep telling, because it is a fine line, because you're the expert, right? You know how to put this together. You know what people like. But you also want to make sure you have a conversation. So at the end, you can go back and say, okay, I know you said there was 10 key things, and here are the 10 I delivered, and here they are. And I want to make sure this was right for you. And, some people may say, well, I don't know what I want, but there was a Super Bowl commercial that I loved about a wedding. And then the episode of The Office when Jim and Pam got married, I love that. So make it like that. So at least you're getting into their head and you're seeing what their expectations are, because that clarity is so important.
Oh my
Valerie was telling a story when we were up in Toronto, and she was talking about clarity. And it's funny. She said, clarity is real important. Like when our Tristan, our youngest, and he was a senior in high school last year, and we'd say, okay, be home at a reasonable hour. And he'd leave.
Nope.
Actually, this is probably his junior year, because we learned quickly that that term is way too obtuse, a reasonable hour.
Yep.
And then he'd get home at like 2, and we'd say, what the heck are you doing? Why are you here
Yeah.
late? And he said, you said a reasonable hour. And we're getting mad that he got home late, but we never gave a time. And then we said, then going forward, be home by midnight. And if you can't be home by midnight, you call us. And all of a sudden, it all cleared up. And if he was late, he didn't like to get in trouble, but he did, because we were all clear on what the expectation was. And if he was on time, we're like, hey, you're good to go. So that clarity, it goes a long way. And I think, and even at Disney, we get in our way. Sometimes we get to the point and we think to ourselves, we get caught up in this. We've been doing this for so long. We don't have to talk to our guests anymore. We know how to operate a theme park. We know what we're doing. They don't know. We're the experts. And so we're going to give them. And then we build something, or we build a sign, or we build an experience. They don't like it. We're like, what's wrong with them?
Yeah.
How could they not like this? Well, let's look at the research. When did that movie come out? And did you build it for families, or did you build a thrill ride? And let's look at why they're not liking it. And most of the time, it's not a creative error. It's we didn't listen to what they wanted, or we didn't try to ask some questions about their experiences they wanted to have. And that's where we missed the mark. So
That's good. I think the other thing to add to this, asking these questions prior to doing anything, so you have some clear markers, so you know what success will be. Like if you could do these things, like, oh my gosh, they're telling you at least what they think, plus whatever over the top things that you would want to do for them. And then next level would be like you deliver. They've experienced the videos, and they're like, okay, yeah, great, thanks. They pay you, you're done. Follow up is like, okay, so what could we have done? What went great? What could we have done better? Right? Those two questions, just an email, a phone call, whatever, but giving them one more opportunity to say, you know what, letting them step back. Sometimes you don't want to hear. I just remember, and not even remember, like it was a long time ago. I still feel like there are sometimes we deliver a project and I'm like, oh man, I'm not sure they're going to like this. And asking that question of like, what part of the experience didn't go well, what could have gone better, it's just scary. It's scary. You don't know. And I don't want to hear bad stuff. I don't want to, it's going to hurt my heart, or the guys that, spent so much time and energy and put their soul into this work. But it's in asking those questions and getting those responses, that's the only way that you can get better. And you don't want to wait. If every single one of your clients has this one experience where they're just like, man, they just missed the mark here, but nobody ever tells that to you. Holy cow, think of the way that the impact that you could have, the referrals that you could have if you went that extra mile and got that feedback and made a change because of it.
Yeah. It's that is once again great. It's a great approach. Taking the critical feedback. And to your point is, I think a lot of businesses, when you're leading people, the boss sometimes says, I'll pretend that I'm a great leader and nothing's going wrong, and you'll pretend it's great, and we'll just sort of pretend together. And so we don't have to deal with any conflict. But then, it goes unresolved and just gets worse. And that turns into all kinds of unsaid dynamics. So I think from my point of view, I think I have a couple thoughts on this. One is, I think what you want to do at the beginning is tell the client, first of all, for example, between now and the event, here's my cell phone number where you can text me. And if at any point you have an idea, you have a change you want to make, you have something you want us to capture, if something's not going the way you want it to go, you need to text me. If you're at the wedding and you're sitting up at the table and there's a moment you forgot to tell me about, you text me and we'll capture that. And so I think the big thing is, and we've learned this at Disney, I'm going to use we the rest of my life. I'm no longer a cast member there, but you can't, once it's over, all you have at your disposal is, I'm sorry, how much money can I give you back? Or can I give you a discount on the next one? That's all you have, because the moment is gone. And people, when they're on vacation, real time, it's all about real time. And so we have I know that they were testing, and I think they've rolled this out to all the Walt Disney World hotels now. When you check in, there's a little we call them buck slips, those little bookmarks in your room. and it's a note from the general manager of the hotel and says, welcome, our cast are, ready and excited to host you while you're here. We want to make sure you have a magical experience. At any point, if you don't feel like you're getting everything you need, don't hesitate to email me or text me directly. And here's my number and here's my name. And then we have duty managers in the hotels, and they get the emails and texts. And when something comes to them, it's like you're talking to GM. And a lot of times it's not like I don't like my hotel room. It's I ordered an iron an hour ago and they said it's on its way. And now it's been an hour and a half and I got to go to this dinner. And if you don't fix that in the moment, there's no amount of money or anything else you can do later. It's about that event right then and there. And the duty manager jumps in, fixes it real time. And so I think if you can start honing in on what are the things that you may have to fix real time, and, or at least give your client the option, the permission, and the encouragement to talk to you real time, so they know that's an option, and they can be thinking about that. I think that goes a long way. And then you always have the post piece. Is there anything you would have done differently? And I would even take it a step further. If we're going to hone in on the marriage, the wedding business here for videographers, it's not only how did you like the experience with our company and with our product, but what would you have done to even plan? What would be the things you would have improved upon if you had to replan the whole wedding? Because I think there's a big opportunity. If you're going to be a videographer at all these things, you should become an expert in the wedding business. And you should probably be able to maybe give your clients up front, hey, I'm going to do this videography for you. But what I'll tell you also is, after every wedding I've been to, I've gotten feedback from different weddings. And here's all the things they said they wish they did differently. And this is free. Here's a list of 30 things I've heard they wish they did differently. I don't know how you're planning your wedding, but you just might want to look at these things and consider these. So now you're not even a videographer. Now you're a wedding consultant, and you happen to be filming it also. So once again, now you're differentiating yourself through service, and that could take it a whole step further.
Oh my gosh, I think that's super good. And I feel like for me, I became that consultant, or, whatever you want to call it, because for me, like, it's about the whole experience. Like when we were doing weddings, like, and that was the majority of what we were doing. I was like, okay, like, these are the people that you should hire, that, look at this. If you don't hire us, hire these guys. Make sure that your bridesmaids know this, and tell your groomsmen that. And, we made little videos that they could give to their wedding party and to their family, so that they knew what to expect, and ideas and all that stuff. But asking that question, if you had to do it all over again, what would you do different? And then using that, I mean, that's whoever our clients are, whatever kind of jobs that we're doing, I think that's super relevant. And I mean, becoming an expert, a consultant, that differentiates you. And plus it's incredibly helpful. And why wouldn't you want to help people, have a greater experience, a greater video, a greater just overall thing?
Yeah. So I see it all the time now when I do keynotes. I deal with a lot of the AV and people, and some of them, it's all business. Here's your lav. Let's do a mic check. Okay, you're good, and that's it. It's fine. It's good. It's very good. And then every once in a while, I have the tech is, hey, how you doing? They introduce themselves. We're gonna do a mic check. What's your content about? And I say, oh, it's on leadership and this. Okay. So when you give your speech, do you walk around a lot, or you usually kind of in one place? And I said, well, I move around a lot. Okay, good to know. And they may ask a couple other questions. They don't wait till they get behind the camera and I start speaking. They realize there's an angle they didn't think about, because why wouldn't they think about that? They should have thought about that in advance. I did another one recently where, it's the curse of, I have a jump drive and I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to plug it in. And then it worked perfectly on my computer. I give it to you. Then I do my presentation, and, a couple slides, the words are not centered. And after it's not, on one hand, it's not a big deal. On the other hand, like, I perfected the presentation and I gave it to someone, and then I go over and I go, so I guess you guys don't proof it before we do this. And they say, oh yeah, sometimes it doesn't. And the response was, yeah, sometimes when you change the computer, it just changes the I'm like, well, thanks, Mr. Obvious. I know it changed it. I saw it while I was speaking. So, theoretically, that should be on my checklist. I should have reviewed the presentation on his computer,
right.
But he could easily done that. That could easily be something on his checklist to say, I'm going to take full ownership of this presentation, and I'm going to make sure you sound good and you look good, and I'll check it for you, and I'll either fix it for you or I'll have you fix it. And that's the difference between, good, poor, excellent, and excellent, is those little details.
I love that.
And it's repetitive, right? It's not, there's no new issues are coming up. It's
Right.
always an audio issue, a video issue,
Right.
presentation issue. It's like, just think it through and you'll probably take care of 99.9% of the issues.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, this has been super fun. I'm wondering if is there any last bit of advice, thinking through the video business owner that wants to grow his or her business. Delivering obviously great customer service is only going to help us as we do this work. Any parting wisdom or advice that you would share with us?
Yeah, I would just say continue to hone in on your craft. Be excellent at being a videographer and all the technology that comes along with it. The visual, the audio, all the things you're experts in. You should be right up there with everybody else. But realize that what a lot of the things you value are just going to be transparent to your customers. Once again, they're not going to understand the value of a lot of what you're doing. So you got to make sure you're talking to them in a language they understand. And if you overwhelm them with the technical side of trying to impress them with that, they're going to say, like my wife does, look, I don't want to know how the iPhone works. I just want to press the button and I want something to happen. Don't explain this to me. And that's what a lot of clients are like. And so you just got to make sure they feel comfortable. And once again, I think if you just put them in the crosshairs, make sure that every time you're making decisions, you're doing it, your customers have a better experience. That should be all you think about. And if you do that, the business will grow. The business will grow. Even if you have a bad marketing plan, even if your pricing is kind of out of whack and you're figuring that out, the quality of the interaction you have with people and the delivery of what you're going to give them, if you can make those two things happen and keep honing in on what their needs are and what their wants are, your business will grow with time. No matter how poorly you manage it, it's going to grow because you're going to differentiate yourself by just being maniacally focused on them.
I love it. So if we had to do this whole podcast over, what would you do different?
Well, first of all, I would put my dog inside so she doesn't keep nudging me in the butt, wanting me to throw the ball. So, that's the issue we got on this side of the camera.
Oh man.
I don't think I'd do anything differently because the question you asked were right on. And I think the idea of what we got at here is great. But I guess, you know what? I guess the listeners would decide what I should have done differently because they're the ones we're talking to. So that's how I'll cop out of that answer.
All right. I want my guests on the show to have a good experience. So I'll ask you later, rate me on a scale of 1 to 5. Dan, this has been super fun to get this time with you. How can people connect with you, follow your consulting and the stuff that you're doing, your book coming out and all that stuff?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the easiest way, dancockerell.com it's all there. I send out an article a week. I curate articles and I send out a free article every Friday. I've done that for 20 years at Disney. I sent articles to my managers every week on a topic. And I have a subscription newsletter that goes out once a month. My podcast is Come Rain or Shine on iTunes. And my book will come out in this summer. But if you go to dancockerell.com, everything you need to know about me and all the stuff we are doing is there.
Awesome. Well, good luck on the book launch. That's super exciting. And
thank you.
The transition that you guys are in. Good luck on selling your house and, all of that stuff. Super appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with us. This was really, really great.
Good. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you can get access to the show notes if you go to studiosherpas.com/154 for this particular episode. All the links, all the stuff that we talk about, you can click on that stuff and it'll take you to different places in the World Wide Web. This is one of my favorite parts of the episode where I read a podcast review. I know you're probably dying to know, where can I do a podcast review? Just go to the iTunes store, podcast store, and is that what podcast store? Is that what it's like? They're free, right? Podcasts are all free. I forgot to tell you that. Yeah, this podcast is free. Go to the podcast store, something that Apple owns. Leave a review. We're doing this cool thing where we're giving away some t-shirts, some swag to people, not to everybody, but to people that email us and say, hey, I did submit a review, and just send an email to hey@studiosherpas.com and write review in the subject line, and you will be entered in to win a chance at getting a sweet Studio Sherpas t-shirt, if I do say so myself. This review comes from Mr. Redcliffe. Mr. Redcliffe says, Thanks for the great insight. I went back and listened to every episode. That's a lot of episodes. Even though I have a website, but no cameras or clients, with the advice and insights that I received from the podcast, I feel like I can start off running without any fears. Amazing. This, I don't need to say this. Thank you for saying that. I believe that. I believe that with all my heart, that there is so much. I bring in incredible guests that have incredible things to say. The shows I've got coming up to end this year out are amazing. Really, really good stuff. So anyway, there's that. If you like this show, if you like this episode, please share it with somebody that you think would enjoy it too. I would love for you to do that, and I would appreciate that, and I'm sure that person would appreciate that too. I want to invite you to a workshop that I'll be hosting, things that you should be doing right now to book more high-paying video production clients, even if you hate sales. I know. Some of us feel like we're terrible at it. Others feel like we're trying to convince people to buy something that they don't want. I would love for you to attend this workshop. So go to studiosherpas.com/workshop. Go to that site, fill out the form, and we'll get you access to the workshop. Next week's episode, I interviewed the How to Film Weddings guys, John and Nick. These guys have built an amazing tribe. They are giving away a ton of content. Their podcast is awesome. They're just really like awesome human beings. So I don't know if you do wedding films or not. If you do, you definitely have to know about these guys. And if you don't, they're still worth knowing about, because we can all learn from each other, and we talk about business and YouTube and all sorts of stuff that you're going to love. Here is a sneak peek at next week's episode.
John and I, we both have, our scripted kind of sales meeting kind of thing. It's not like, written word for word or anything like that, but we do that. We cover kind of the same topics, and this is, step one, this is step two. And another thing we preach when it comes to, our sales calls and our meetings is, is to listen to what the people are saying to you. Don't just try to get to the next point.
Right.
Because whenever you listen to them, you can hear what their pain points are, so that okay, their grandparents are really, old, and they're not sure how much longer they're going to be here, and, like that kind of thing. So you need to know, not in like a skeezy way, trying to play on their emotions, but like, hey, this is something that we offer, and kind of touch on, some of those pain points. Because I think that that's what the best salespeople out there are, right? Yeah. Are ones that are listening to the people that they are talking to answer their questions or to help them along the way.
I love your guts, my friend. Please let me know how I can support you in your business. Email me and let me know the topics that you would like covered on the show. I do this for you. I would love to hear from you. And unless you tell me what would be helpful, I can't really help you. So until next time, my friend, keep on climbing, keep on trekking. Let's do it together. Love ya. See ya. Peace out.